What was your "I need to grow up" moment that actually made you grow up? When my mom was dying, I had to square with a whole lot of "suck it up and deal" moments with myself so that poop could get done. She'd been sick for a long while, but had always been private about it until the last few months, when she was rapidly getting worse. Especially when my grandmother also got horribly ill at the same time. I got used to the sight, smell of bile real fast, and with the fact that I needed to catch my mom's puke in a bowl because she couldn't walk to the toilet. I got used to spending nights and weekends in hospital rooms so that mom would have someone with her while dad was checking in on grandma. I got used to calmly talking about end-of-life arrangements, because that stuff had to be taken care of. I even got used to not being able to talk about it with anyone, because who was I going to spill to? Everyone else in the family was dealing with a much worse scenario than I was. It sucked horribly and it was the worst year of my life. But it was definitely a growing experience in terms of just learning how to get poop done, even in the most horrific circumstances. In my late 20s, my mom needed open heart surgery, so I moved home for over a year to look after her. Up until that point, I honestly can't think of a single responsible thing I had really done. I started teaching right out of college at age 22. I got a job in a Title I school teaching 5th grade science and social studies. Most students were held back at least once, and I had several students who were 12 and 13 years old. On the first day of school, I remember feeling so strange that I could shut my sealed bedroom door and be trusted to be responsible for the science and civic education of 93 sections of 30 kids, 5th graders. At age 22, my first few years of teaching taught me a lot about how the world worked. I also grew a thick skin, learned to stand up for myself, and developed a desire to always improve myself. When I was 22 to 23, I would always insult my brother as a joke. I never complimented him or anything. One day, he kind of exploded on me, and before I could say something, I realized he was right. All I did was try to bring him down for no reason. I stopped, which ironically enough annoyed him for a while because I would throw in compliments and stopped insulting him as year. Walking into the rehab center I had left 6 months prior, December 2006, I had been a drug addict for 15 years, and even the people who desperately loved me were about to cut me off. I knew in my heart that this was my last chance to get my life in order, otherwise it would be the end. Arrested for BDFI, being a drunken freaking idiot. Realized that almost every problem in my life was related to the fact that I was acting like a drunken frat boy at 27 years old. I never quit drinking completely, but I stopped making it the focal point of my life. My entire life turned around immediately. Realizing that I want to spend my life with someone, but don't have the means to move in with them, get married, start a life, etc. I started driving. I haven't driven due to fear and mostly got rides everywhere, and got a real job. I'm saving up to get a home with my partner so we can have a happy life together. Edit. Writing most of my replies at work. Just finishing my lunch break. I'm proud of myself for pushing myself to get here to this point. And I want you all to know that you can do it too. I believe in you. Hitting rock bottom from booze, blowing pills. Coming up on 4 years clean and sober. Glad to be on the green side of the dirt. I got pulled over doing 90 miles per hour in a 55. I was 17, and in my state is when you were legally an adult. Was still high school and on my way back from my military drill that weekend. The officer had me stop the engine, get out, and then proceeds to handcuff me on the side of the road in my uniform, and has me sit on the gerbet. Then we proceeded to have a nice long talk about making choices and the consequences of my actions. If I had crashed or lost control, and what would happen if he booked me for this. Reckless endangerment. Operating a motor vehicle 35 miles per hour in excess of the speed limit. Reckless driving. I was going to be one frick teenager. He then took off the handcuffs, handed me my keys, and told me that he had never seen my name come up anywhere for anything ever again. Before letting me go, I was shaking so bad I could barely drive off the highway. Suffice to say, I've never had another traffic violation. Living with roommates. As a teenager and in my early 20s, I figured being lazy with dishes wasn't that big a deal. It's just a little smelly. It's nothing some elbow grease and barkeeper's friend can't make good as new. Right? Washing dishes is a pain. It's annoying. My feet hurt. My belly gets all wet. It's no big deal if I let them sit. Then I lived with roommates who didn't do their dishes for days at a time. Left them to sit with nasty starchy food on them to rot and stink. Put them in the drying side for weeks at a time and never put them away. I was forced to wash my dishes by hand because there was only room around the sink for me to hold up a single plate over their mountain of dishes and wash it slowly so as not to get soap on the drying side, which probably would have helped. The things on that side frequently weren't even frickin' clean. The rare moments when the sink was clear were like a rainbow for me. I would stare at it sometimes, just overjoyed that I could use the sink. I could cook in the kitchen and let my pans cool down instead of burn my hands cleaning them immediately after cooking, leading to my food getting cold. But inevitably within 2 or 3 days it'd be full again, and the cycle continues. We moved out because of this. We couldn't stand being in the kitchen because it was a complete sty for 128 of the 132 days we lived there. We were supposed to save money there, but we just spent the same amount as usual by eating out for every damn meal because we were too grossed out to use the kitchen or even just be in the house. Sometimes, it really made me realize how freaking nasty I had been before this. How unfreaking real it was to butt-me people would be fine with nasty poop in my freaking sink in a gross butt kitchen. I no longer leave dishes in the sink for more than 24 hours. If it went at 9 p.m. last night, it comes out before 8 p.m. tonight. I don't even use a dishwasher anymore. I hand wash everything pretty much immediately because it was so traumatizing to see how dirty the poop on the drying side was. I don't trust machines anymore. I made a lot of excuses for myself as a teenager. I made my mom's life that much worse by shirking my one freaking chore because it's gross and my feet hurt. It's not that hard. It's not that freaking hard. I'm an adult. It sucks, but it's not that freaking hard. And then I get to have a clean kitchen, which is a genuinely healing experience. I was 15. I had a stepfather who hated kids, and my mom had 4. Me being the youngest, the eldest two bailed as soon as they had the chance. Because our family was terribly dysfunctional. Stepdad would get drunk and abuse my mom. We tried many times to stop him or get the cops involved, but she always backed him up. So frick it. Her dog, her fleas. There came a day when stepdad decided that he didn't want to abuse mom. He's come upstairs after me. Being a malnourished 15-year-old facing a drunken ex-boxer with a history of violence was enough to make a boy freeze up. I couldn't freeze up, though, or my life would basically be over. I couldn't let the next 5 minutes go his way. So by the time he got to the top of the steps, I was waiting for him with a baseball bat. Not as much of an equalizer as Sam Colt would recommend, but it did the trick. I beat the monster. I grew up. My mom and stepdad moved out almost immediately, her choosing him over us. She said when we graduated high school, she'd sell the house, so be ready. But my next oldest brother, it was just him and me at that point, was into drinking and threw me out. Good times. Edit. Thank you for my first gold. Kind Redditor. I have been answering some questions below. Perhaps I should write that book. I hear that all the time. When I realized that I needed to start socializing with people, otherwise I couldn't get anywhere in life. I'm mostly an introvert and I hate to go outside because the grind never stops. At some point though I realized that if I never socialized I wouldn't make any friends and would never feel good about myself whatsoever. Ever since that moment, I started going out with people, chatting with people online. I started expressing myself a little better and might have a girlfriend soon. Honestly a good thing. IDK if this all fits as a grow-up moment, but I hope it does. Realizing that going to IT school to become a programmer when I wasn't even interested in that line of work was why I had depression, was alone, and always angry. Now I'm going for art and design, have incredibly calmed down, and found myself the love of my life. A key moment in my development happened in a summer job I had when I was 18. One of my duties at this small industrial facility was to open up the garage-style overhead doors at the start of the day and close them at the end. One day I went to close them and discovered one had been pulled so far up that the roller had come out of its track, and I couldn't get it to go back down. I got Frank, the low man on the totem pole at this place, besides me and the other summer hand. He looked up at it and said, "Did you do this?" I hemmed and hawed and explained that it wasn't my fault, that there should have been a stop or a guide or something to keep that from happening. Again he asked, "Did you do this?" Again I evaded. Finally he said, "Stop making excuses. Admit you fricked up, and let's fix it." I almost uttered some more bullpoop but instead said, "Yeah, I did frick that up. Let's fix it," and we did. That lesson is still fresh after a third of a century. And #X200B. Edit. To be clear, I'm the one that pulled the thing off track. Some people are opining that this was bullpoop, that it wasn't my fault and that I shouldn't have been held responsible. They're completely missing the point. Sure, you can parse this situation to where it wasn't my fault, but that's a waste of energy. It's so much simpler to own up to your own actions. Yes, I pulled it up too far, and it came off the track. This simple, true admission cuts past all the ifs, ands and buts, clearing the way for me to spend energy seeking a solution instead of playing defense. Paying rent for the first time. I had a child. It wasn't just me and my adult, fully capable wife who could take up the slack if I screwed up. I now had this helpless little person relying on me. Until she was born, I hadn't held a job for over a year. I then had that job for 8 years. And when I did switch jobs there was a significant pay increase and now I've been there 4 years. After I dropped out of college, I worked at a Home Depot as a cashier for a while. Then I got fired for never showing up on time, after not being able to cut it as a cashier in retail. I thought, it's probably time to get my act together. Quote, I did. Currently write code that organizes financial data. Right when I graduated college and moved out on my own, I received around a $100,000 inheritance and started spending money like it was nothing. To the point where I finally checked my financials and realized I had spent $30,000 in 9 months. It was only when I ran through the numbers that I realized I was being a total, complete idiot. I think this really helped later on in life, though. It caused me to save and invest as much money as possible, even when I had a really well-paying job. While people at my level were buying either a Lexus or a Mercedes, I was clinging onto my Honda Civic, then later bought a Prius. Waking up from my nap and I was still in the cell, being prepared to kill my ex-wife and the dude she was fricking on my couch. I realized I needed to live my life for myself. My husband has depression and lost his job a few months back, so he's not in a good place right now. We're late 20s and have always muddled through together, but this is the lowest he's ever been. Stepping up to keep us going through this has definitely made me grow up. The positive side is that we're coping well and he's getting help. I'm quite proud of us. I went to a party where I knew my ex was going to be with his girlfriend. We dated for about 4 years and had been broken up for 2 years at that point. He started dating his girlfriend within a few months of us breaking up. And I guess I hadn't gotten over how much that hurt me. So I brought a date to the party, told everybody he was my boyfriend, and got absolutely trashed. I woke up the next day and hated myself. I realized I needed to let it go. So I did. That was a huge growing up moment for me. This past week, I divorced my wife of 2 years a few months ago. It was amicable, so no hard feelings toward her. But once I got my own apartment, I took a deep nosedive into alcoholism. You're completely wasted every night. It was a wonder I actually showed up to work every day. I got used to being hungover at work as the norm, and went straight home to drink another 24-pack alone in my poopty little apartment every night. This inevitably led to lack of sleep, which combined with all the alcohol, started giving me a warped, though still, barely, functioning view of myself and the world. Luckily, I had a friend who I could rant to through FB Messenger, and explain how depressed and drunk I was, and how I loved humanity, but hated myself for such inaction. She was extremely helpful in letting me vent, but obviously I was getting worse and worse. After a few months of this, I started getting into well-intentioned bar flights, and swiping through Tinder, falling in love for a day and coming on super strong, then completely changing my mind and breaking all these random girls' hearts. It's like my body upped the testosterone or something, all the while feeling like I was saving the world by saving myself, or something. Finally, the friend who I would drunkenly rant to suggested that I go back and read through all our conversations, sober. So that's what I did this Monday. It was pretty entertaining, but very eye-opening. I went home that night and drank the one beer I happened to have left in the fridge, and haven't had another since. I've been cleaning up my apartment, apologizing to all the random girls, practicing the piano, and trying to eat healthier. I even have something of a job interview tomorrow. It's really surprising how good it feels to actually get enough sleep and not be hungover all day. Let's just hope it sticks this time. My wife dying and leaving me with our 3 kids. I'd always been very immature up until then. The day before I went and got long overdue mental health help. Talk to someone, kids. There's ways to make that pain in your head get better.